Welcome to the Life's Best Medicine podcast, where we are finding hope and healing one episode at a time. No appointment needed, no rubber gloves, and no coping. Just a healthy dose of life lessons to help equip you for this wild journey we call life. Hey everyone, this is a friendly reminder that we are here for entertainment purposes only. We may not even be that entertaining at times, but this is not medical advice. Talk to your doctor, check with your healthcare professionals before making any lifestyle changes or medicine changes. What we're talking about is our clinical experience and what we've seen. And so if you really want our advice, you can consult us. You can actually consult me as a doctor, or you can consult my guest and get all your questions answered. But we can't give free medical advice because we can't pay our bills with that. But we can help to educate you a bit and allow you to think a little bit. And always reach out to your medical professional before making any lifestyle changes. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Can you believe it? We're in January of 2025. We survived 2024. We made it, and now we have our work to do to get back, those New Year's resolutions, take off those few pounds we may have gained during the holidays, having Aunt Betty's cookies or whatever. So I'm really excited about this year. We have a lot of great podcasts coming up, and specifically want to thank my sponsors that have brought these stories to you, from the very beginning, from our fragile beginnings here with no listeners, and we've grown and things have been so great. And so Keto Mojo, great company, they helped us get us through that first year. They agreed to that first year of sponsorship, and that was fantastic. And so they're still my go-to for Keto Mojo for ketones and sugars, and greatly love the company and the owners. They're fantastic people, so continue to support them. But this year we're focusing more on Health Code Get Health. Fantastic company started by Ben Bickman. Their protein formulas were designed by him, and his brother Joel Bickman has taken over the company, and he's doing some great stuff. Great people, just really, really good. I'm so honored to be associated with them. So the big things we're talking about this year is berberine. They have a special berberine that I like. Berberine helps with insulin sensitivity. We're using it in our pre-diabetics and diabetics, those of us who have metabolic dysfunction, which is about 93% of us or so, especially after the holidays, probably 98% of us maybe at this point. But their berberine is very special. It has turmeric and broccoli seed extract, which is what I'm using right now, and I love it. It's supposed to work as an anti-inflammatory and help get that body a little bit more sensitive to sugars and insulin. So that will help us on our journey. Also, they have great protein shakes that our own Chris Cornell has been using, and he's transformed. He's actually doing some commercials for them this year, which is pretty cool. He's really changed his life. You can go back and listen to that episode. He's a fantastic guy, and he's been a huge supporter of the podcast. And also, they have the fermented pea protein that they're using now for people who are more on the vegan side or vegetarian side. And then they have the old faithful, the chocolate macadamia and vanilla. Great shakes. That's what I use after my workouts. If I go on a long ride, that's my recovery drink. So everyone, please support them. We greatly appreciate them. That we have discount codes on our website. If you go to ArizonaMetabolichealth.com, we have connections, discount codes, all that kind of stuff. And if you haven't signed up for our newsletter, please do that, and you'll be apprised of everything going on and be on the Insiders Club here. And for our Patreon supporters, thank you for getting us off the ground, helping us to get going, and paying the editors and the video guys and all that kind of stuff. Greatly appreciate your support. It's less than 1% of listeners, so I'm hoping that a few more people say this year they want to help out and get some more stories coming out here. But hey, happy 2025. Let's attack this together. And again, thank you, Health Code Get Health, GETHLTH.com. Both of my parents are on it. I'm using it with my senior patients and really helping to build some muscle mass and get some good nutrition, and we're seeing amazing results. So thank you all, and enjoy this episode.
Discover a new path to wellness at Arizona Metabolic Health. Dr. Brian Lenzkes offers advanced medicine and personalized care, treating the root causes of your health concerns, not just the symptoms. Whether you're seeking direct primary care, effective diabetes management, or medical weight loss, with a holistic approach, our team is here to guide you every step of the way. Visit ArizonaMetabolichealth.com today to learn more about our innovative health solutions.
Hello and welcome back to the Low Carb MD podcast and the Life's Best Medicine podcast. We're going to run this on both because it's so important. We want to get the word out to everyone because we have a special guest today. Unfortunately, Tro can't make it. He's got family obligations and the Armenian Christmas and all that stuff today. So Doug's just stuck with me. Doug Reynolds, welcome.
Hey,
Awesome to have
man.
you.
Thanks, Brian. It's awesome to be here again.
So for the four people who don't know who Doug is has been a huge leader in the uh low carb high fat. It's kind of morphed over time. Now you're hearing a lot about metabolic health. We're here we're all saying the same thing. And the Society of Metabolic Health Practitioners, Doug is the founder of that, and so he's done so much. Low Carb USA. A lot of people have been to the conferences. A lot of people who I've met who are listeners now that Doug is responsible for all that. And I had the honor of having his book early. And so, Doug, tell people about your book. We'll start with that, and so that they can look for it. And we'll have links in the show notes on both podcasts.
Okay. Hey, Brian. So, I think we were chatting a little bit before we got started here, and I had a very interesting life growing up and stuff that was unusual compared to most people, especially here in the States. And there's so many things that I did in my life that really didn't work out and that were major failures. And somehow I feel like I learned so much from all of that. And then I always used to think there was a book in there somewhere. What positioned me as an electrical engineer and a software engineer to make a decision to start Low Carb USA, to teach people like you and practitioners about carbohydrate reduction and the therapeutic benefits of that. What on earth was I thinking? How did I even get to make that decision or come to make that decision? And I always thought there was a story there that was that would warranted telling at some point. And then I got friended by somebody on Twitter at the time, which is X now, and she wrote to me and said, like, seeing that I was involved with Low Carb USA and the SMHP, and saying, like, do you want to write a book? Because she was from a publishing house that helps people to produce books. And they have a really interesting way of doing it, where they don't gouge you from the commissions on the book afterwards forever. They basically just charge an upfront fee to help you produce the book and get you to basically rank on Amazon, and then they've done their commitment is complete. But then they don't take any commissions after that, and then hopefully you're able to, if your book does okay, then you're able to kind of recover that money that it cost you to produce it in the first place. But I was just telling you that the way it starts out is that they assign you to somebody that's going to help you develop the outline of the book to start with. And the person this young lady that they assigned me to, I thought I was going to have to teach her all about low carb and all of that kind of stuff. But it turns out she's a follower of Dr. Eric Berg. And so she knew all about keto and all the terminology and everything. And she was so excited about it that she ended up spending a lot more time with me than she was supposed to, because you're paying for their time, basically. That's the fee. And so she spent like 7 hours with me instead of 1 or 2, like doing just the outline. And then you do a bunch of recordings, and they produce a manuscript from that, and then they help you edit it and eventually, market it at the end. So that's the whole process. But in the process of hammering out the outline, my thought was the story was just about my life and what led up to making that decision to start Low Carb USA initially. And she said, no, like, that just has to be the first part of the story, because you need to get this message out here about what you're doing and about the benefits of this lifestyle. And And so the whole my initial thought and concept of the book has kind of changed completely. So yes, we do start with my story and how I got up to that point, but then we go into how low carb has evolved over time and how the SMHP, the Society of Metabolic Health Practitioners, how that came about. There's a long chapter on the ketogenic diet, which is a summary of it. I think you might have seen it, the document that Sarah Rice and I wrote, dispelling all the myths and concerns about the ketogenic diet, and really looking at what the science and the literature out there says about it. And she was the main person behind that. And literally we had 330, I asked her for a handful to back up what I was saying. And in the end, she basically rewrote it because she wasn't happy with the accuracy of my wording and stuff. And it has 337 references.
Yeah, it's
So
amazing. And all you've done, like, there's so many resources for patients. What is low carb? What is this?
yeah.
And
So
people could
basically,
go to the SMHP and learn all this stuff.
right. So we condensed that, summarized that, and that's one of the chapters in the book. And then we talk a lot about LowCarbUSA and all the conferences that we put on there, and then the SMHP and how that came about, and all the resources that we as an organization provide. And at the end of the book, it's actually there's a QR code at the end of the book that people can scan, and it takes them to a page that we're still building, but it will be built by the time the book eventually comes out. That literally on one page is a bit like something that you developed when you first started doing this. It's like just all the resources where on one page, like where all the things that people can go to learn more, get help, get accredited, get all the all the stuff that they really know, but then they know that they can get it from a reliable source.
Yeah, because that's the struggle. A lot of people will go to their primary care and they don't want to hear anything about it. And if you go here, look at this, if the doctor will take the time to look at it, there's an
Right.
overwhelming amount of evidence and data, and that's what I've loved about what you've done. And I think let's take a step back, because I think this is kind of important. Like, I love your book. I mean, it was really, and knowing you the years, there's a lot of stuff I didn't know, like, just stuff we don't talk about. We're talking about metabolic health and conferences and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But hearing your childhood and like being dropped off at a farm where they're having like rebels are attacking and like your parents just drop you off and you're like, oh, and then you learn how to take risks and like driving big tractors and so I'm like, oh, that's why Doug takes these crazy risks that I never would take, right?
Mm.
So
Yeah, and so that the book changed into and it's become really important to me that really now the reason for putting this book out there is to try and reach people like we've been trying to do for so long, get outside of our sphere of influence, current sphere of influence, like our social media and newsletters, and reach people outside of that. There are so many people that need to know about this that we, that hopefully we can help, but they don't know we even exist. And I've always been trying to think of a way to do that. And suddenly now, if we're able to get this book to rank on Amazon, then other people are going to get this book suggested to them if they've if they like memoirs or something about nutrition, health. Anybody that's looking and reading and buying books in those genres is going to get this book suggested to them. And so hopefully some of them buy it, and now suddenly we're reaching people that we were never able to reach before. And
yeah, and that's what's exciting now. Now we're this metabolic health thing has become, in political parties they're talking about it. They're talking about it from a public health standpoint, National Institute of Health, right? So people who are understanding, I mean, people who were were really worried about people's health during COVID and lockdowns and stuff, they realized the importance of metabolic health in survival. And now we have dementia, Parkinson's, like you mentioned it too, with brain injuries and all these areas where people benefit. And we say, look, this is the what Ivor Cummins would say is the root cause. We have to look at the root cause, and so much we've lost. And I love your book of your transition of saying, okay, I'm staying away from fat my entire life, and you're gaining weight and feeling miserable and inflamed, and then you go, okay, let me just eat a steak. Now you're happy, and everything starts getting better. But it's such a hard leap for a lot of us because it was so ingrained into us that we could never have. You had to have, oatmeal and toast. Even I'll tell you, Doug, this, and I'm sure you probably talked to Peter Ballard. Said he wrote me into doing this talk for a bunch of ranchers, and a lot of these guys are struggling with obesity and metabolic disease, and just because they're not even eating their own product because they're afraid of eating, they think they're killing everyone by raising, like, this is our family calling. And when they realize, like, oh my gosh, I gained 50 pounds because I'm eating oatmeal and canola oil and safflower oil, all this terrible stuff, and they go, you and I could eat steak that I have access to. Yeah, let's see what happens. And several of the guys had already lost 80 or 90 pounds and they're healthy again and they feel great. But giving someone their life back, and that's what's so exciting about what you're doing, is you're bringing it to not only practitioners to learn more, but also the lay public and people that may be ranchers or people who live out in the country to realize, what can we do to change our health?
Yeah, well, that's what I'm hoping, is that some of those people will find some interest in what this book's about, and buy it and read it and get something out of it. And I kind of say in the conclusion at the end, like, if you've got to this point, then thank you, first of all, but also something here obviously resonated with you, so that you were able to get to the end of this book. And whether you're a patient who just wants to get better and get off their meds, or a doctor who's sick like you were of not being able to help your patients, or someone that just wants to be healthier and live their best life, that there is hope, and that patient autonomy is so important, that it's your choice, that the doctor needs to lay out for you all the options without any bias, and you make the decision on what your course of treatment is going to be. And that practitioners, doctors that are refusing to offer that to their patients, at the very least, I'm not the only one who thinks that's malpractice, so.
Yeah, and it's not only that, Doug. I'm telling you, we had 2 calls this week in Arizona Metabolic Health. My receptionist was telling me who's my wife too. 2 people called and they go, yeah, we want to do medical weight loss stuff, and they go, like, what drugs are you going to use? And I'm like, she's like, well, he doesn't use drugs. We use lifestyle and stress management. And they're like, yeah, we're not really interested in that. We don't want to change what we're doing. We just want to take the drug and keep doing what we're doing. It's like, it doesn't work that way. Just like people just take supplements to get healthier. It's like, well, you're smoking, 2 packs a day and you're taking some fish oil is probably not going to reverse that.
Yeah, absolutely. But, that, I think I was at the perfect point when I was introduced to this, that everything was going wrong for me and I was miserable. And so when someone offered me an alternative that literally just meant I had to change what I was eating a little bit, I jumped at it to at least try it. But a lot of people, and even if they decide that they want to try it, that's what I've learned so much from Rob Sivas is the addiction side of things, that I think is the most responsible thing, that is responsible for people not sticking with this and finding success with it. In the beginning, I had zero tolerance for someone who told me, oh, it's so difficult. I said, because I wasn't, in retrospect, I see that I was not addicted to carbs and sugar and stuff. We ate a ton of them because I thought I should, because I was a runner, but there wasn't that addiction. But I didn't know it at the time. Initially, I thought it would be hard. But once I started eating ribeye steaks with fat in it again now, and added all of this stuff back into my diet, it was like I didn't even think about rice and pasta and bread and all that rubbish. It was just like a pleasure to not have to eat it.
Well,
But
I think
so many people suffer really badly, including Rob. He's like the worst.
Yeah,
And I
he's told
think,
me stories. I mean, he's got to, like, if it's there, he'll rip down walls to get
yeah,
to
he's got
M&Ms. That's his
roots.
thing.
Yeah, his roots back home. Make sure that he doesn't go past a fast food place, because he said the car will just drive in there on
Yeah,
its
it's
own.
amazing. Yeah,
Um,
anyone listening, Rob Sivers he's a leader, and he's just a great guy. He's so intimidating. That South African, like, the man, he's like a bull, and you're like, okay, I'm not gonna argue with Rob about stuff because he'll be right. It's like you're wasting your time. But you start looking at this and how much there is to that. And in your case, I think part of your success in reading your book was like you felt like I mean, you had the memory issues. You had a lot, blind in one eye for a long time. You had a lot going. I mean, I don't want to give it all away because I want people to read it. But you went through a lot of turmoil in life, and then you're training, and then you have inflammation, you have pain all the time,
mm,
and then you change your diet, and everything gets better. And you lost weight, 35 pounds or so. But
mhm,
it was never really like you were different than most of us out there, where it wasn't really weight was the big thing. You just felt bad, and you had a lot of stuff going on. But
mm.
a lot of us go, oh, I'm just gonna do low carb so I can lose 20 pounds, but they don't realize how much of everything else benefits. Mood gets better and stress gets better. I mean,
Yeah.
and that's why your conference really blew me away the first time I went, because I was going for diabetes management. Really is what I wanted to learn more about when I went to the
Mhm.
first Low Carb USA conference in San Diego. And I was blown away by having Georgia E and all these people talking about mental health and Parkinson's and dementia and cancers, and they go, oh my gosh, are we just missing the boat completely in medicine right now? And you
Mm.
realize, like you said, it's malpractice. No one talks about stress, sleep, lifestyle, exercise, activity, enjoying life, laughing, bonding with people. And then also these conferences are so, and I say this because I know Boca Raton's coming up. And unfortunately, I'm a West Coast guy, so I don't get to do that one. But it's super amazing to see people come together and they go, everyone's drinking the coffee the same way as I do, and I don't have to be
Mm.
the outlier, and I could eat the same thing as everyone else and not feel weird. And it's pretty amazing just to see that camaraderie and group effect that you have.
Yeah, and I think everybody there is so excited about the successes that they're having, either personally or in their practices or whatever. I've probably told the story on this podcast before about you. I mean, yes, you heard about all of this at that first conference you came to, and then you started implementing it, or making it available to your patients if they wanted to try it. And you started having all of this success, and then we started with, you got Jeff to convert, the guy that's a president of the National Association of Sports Nutrition. He's a good friend of yours, and we started having these local meetings in San Diego at his gym. And I remember the one day we finished the meeting, it was afterwards, everyone was standing around, and there was like a whole bunch of people huddled around you. And you were talking and you're gesturing and you were all excited and about what you were talking about. And I was standing with Pam and your wife, Linnell. And she said, "Who is that person? And what have you done with my husband?"
Yeah, because I'm kind of an introvert naturally, right?
Right.
So,
That's what she was telling us. And
but when
like,
you get passionate about something, you go, I want to help people, like
totally,
what you do. It's like you're an introvert too, but you're out there, you get up on
absolutely.
stage now. I mean, that's
Oh,
another part of the story people need to know. It's like that's not easy for you. It's not your nature. So I think all these things of having a background of understanding you, that's why I love podcasts, because Sean Baker, for instance, was one that really surprised me when I interviewed him, because he's not just a meathead guy that's out there for publicity. This guy has depth. I mean, went through war and he put people together that were on the enemy side. And when
yeah.
you see his character and integrity, you go, wow, okay, that's a whole different side. And then in your case, I see that that people don't realize. As a matter of fact, we're doing this little tiny conference in Arizona, and you go, how much does it cost for AV? And like you're saying, like tell people like that first conference how much you had to put out to get that conference going.
Yeah. I mean,
It's insane what you have to
it
commit to.
is. I mean, so that was a 3-day event, and you didn't even think about it, because you think about, okay, AV. There's like a little projector and a couple of mics and a
Camera.
screen, right?
Yeah.
Right. Um, how expensive can that be? And so we signed a contract with the hotel, which was also outrageous. But then we engaged with the AV team, and um, they quoted us
60,000 plus.
$60,000 plus, right?
Yeah,
So
plus.
that's plus 25% service charge, plus sales tax, which is about almost 8% in California, on top of that. So it was effectively about $81,000 was the actual cost.
Just to record it, and you don't know how many people are going to show up. You have no idea.
To do that. That wasn't even recording. That was just for the screen and the there was a guy obviously that had to put up the slides and swap between the cameras, and because they have cameras, or so there's one of the guy on the stage, and then there's the slides, and then they just swap between those, and someone's got to do that. But seriously, I literally at that point, like we do talk about it in the book, but it is, that I thought we were never going to be able to do this. But I found a way in the end. Luckily, in the contract, it said that we didn't have to use their AV people. And so I found one that was a lot cheaper, and I got a doctor to help me pay that lower amount. And that was, the way that we managed to eventually get out of that hole. But it's wickedly expensive. And then the room blocks that you have to commit to, 500, 600, I think it was 600 rooms or something that we had to commit to. And
you get 200 people at the conference, and now you're like, oh my gosh, you got to pay for, you still have to pay for all
exactly that.
It's ridiculously
like,
crazy.
You're on the hook for the balance of the rooms.
Plus, you fly out the speakers and get their meals, and all those things people don't realize.
Yeah, the food and beverage minimum as well. It's the same thing. If you don't spend that money, then they charge it to you anyway. So whether you order the food or not, I think people, including myself, before we got started on this, have no idea how wickedly expensive it is. And I think if I had known, I probably wouldn't have even tried in the first place.
Well, then I remember
it's almost a good thing that I didn't know, because I just had to find a way to make it work. But it was really hard. And if I had known ahead of time that this is going to be the cost, I probably wouldn't have done it.
Yeah, and I remember too, like you would have to pay for all the meals, and then 20 people decide to go out to dinner with their friends, and then you're still on the hook. Luckily, you had Ben Bakikio who would eat all the extra steak, so that wasn't an issue, right? But it's pretty crazy. I mean, all the how much, for me, I looked at them and go, no, I'll never put a conference on. Let you guys, because the other thing that happened right in the middle of this, you have to commit to next year already, and then COVID hits in the middle of that, and you're like, you have to delay it and cancel, and I mean, it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. Like, you don't know what the possibilities of all the stuff that can happen, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've already, like for Boca, we've already signed a contract for 2026. San Diego as well.
Let's do a quick for people who are in, and you could sign up online, but for people who are going, who are some of the big speakers that are going to be there? I know Tro's there for sure, right?
Right. So Rob Sivers, that we were talking about earlier, he's there. Dr. Ben Bakikio, and fabulous guy in exercise. We've got Kwadwo Karamantan, who's an amazing guy that where's he, up in Canada, right? He's an ER doc.
Super good guy. Yeah.
And so we met him when we went to the Low Carb Denver conference. He was speaking there, and Tro actually brought it. Pam and I were doing an SMHP table there, because it's not one of our events, or it didn't used to be. And he went and grabbed this guy and brought him over to the table and said, we need to get this guy come speak at one of our conferences. And so I engaged with him, and he's coming. Jody Nishida and Andrea Salcido. Andrea Salcido is a gynecologist, and Jody is a pharmacist, a PharmD. But the two of them, we've been having a special focus day the last few years on something specific for one full day at each of the conferences. Just Tro actually started it with food addiction. And so we've been sticking with that since then. And this year at Boca, we are focusing on women's health on the first day.
And they're both outstanding. I mean, really great talking about hormone replacement and
yeah,
treatment and infertility instead of getting it. If you're going for in vitro, I mean, they're having amazing success. So they're both doing really, really strong work
yeah.
in that area for sure.
So we've got so Barbara Levy is apparently one of the most famous gynecologists, definitely in the States and maybe even in the world. Her daughter Lily is how we met Lily. Basically, she came she's a vascular surgeon, and I think you might have even
Oh no, I
introduced
know
us to.
Lily very well. Yeah, she's been
So
on both
she was
podcasts.
at the San Diego event, and you still said to me, "You got to meet this,
Yeah, she's amazing. Yeah, she's a great person too.
So she's speaking as well, but she's not actually part of the Women's Day. She's speaking separately on one of the other days. But her mom is actually the first person on the agenda, and she is amazing. But I come to find out that she's actually an SMHP member, and she's going to be part of our panel of advisors for the revision of the clinical guidelines that we are undertaking in early next year or early this year now. Just like super involved in what we're doing and excited to help us, pro bono sort of stuff without, expecting payment or anything like that. You've got Wafa Abdul Hadi coming from Egypt. She's spoken once. I don't know if you remember seeing her in San Diego a couple of years ago. Just one of the most incredible people. And she actually wrote to me this morning and saying that she's got this whole bunch of new information that she's hoping she's going to be able to present at the event. Exciting new stuff, especially with regards to keto, to cancer in women. And so
critically important. We're seeing a huge uptick in breast cancers and endometrial cancer, ovarian cancer, and so anything we could do to help with that.
So those are the Dr. Bars. I think a lot of people will be familiar with Dr. Bars, Annette Barsworth. She's also, I think she's the last person on the Women's Health Day. Madison Cackley is a research, I think it's Ohio State. She's with Jeff Folick. And so he actually suggested her to us. And so she's been talking to specifically exercise with regards to women's health. So she's part of that day as well. But then on the other days, we've got Quadwo and Dr. Ben and Rob. Gurpreet Pada is coming again. He's been on a few of the grand rounds that we've done. Like he's just got so much he wants to talk about. But he's creating this whole program, like a metabolic health coaching program. So it's so important that we have coaches that can coach these people once the doctor persuades them to try this. But he's making this like where they can, if they have this qualification, they can even find ways to be able to claim from medical insurance and stuff like that as a health coach.
I think it's so important.
The stuff that he's doing is amazing.
And like what you said earlier, Doug, is that so many people struggle with addiction, with stress, get stressed out and you go, I need a cookie, I need a donut, I need chips and salsa, whatever it is. And so how do we manage those things? So having ongoing care, because a lot of us have the book knowledge. As a matter of fact, I may be writing a book on this, of having a book knowledge, and then how do you implement that in life? Because life gets in the way. We're not lab animals just sitting in a cage. We have stresses and financial problems. Your car breaks down. You got things that fights with your boss, whatever, or spouse. And so these are things we have to manage and get us through these fire. Because what happens, like we talked about before, because of the addiction and because of the stress component or not sleeping, everything is worse, and you crave all these bad foods for us. And it's really like we're trying to be bears and hibernate. We try to store as much fat as we can. But the importance of lifestyle and having ongoing care and community is so critically important. People who are part of the community do better. People who come to the conferences because they're learning and they're invested. But if someone says, just tell me what to eat and I'll do that, like without really knowing, it's always a struggle.
Yeah. So we got Mark Cucuzella's coming back to speak, Dom D'Agostino. Uh,
Yeah, he's done a ton of research on ketones and
he's like,
great guy,
yeah, but also
a
one of the
beast.
brightest guys. Like he's come a long way as well. I remember the first event that he spoke at for us, like all the doctors and everybody kind of came out afterwards and like they had no idea.
Yeah, we have to go research. We
half
have to
the
go figure
stuff.
out what he's talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's toned
exactly,
it
right?
down lately. He's gotten more
He's
like,
got
okay,
he's
let's
got
let the
better at
common
it.
people
Like, yeah.
understand. Yeah, because it's so hard because you have so much knowledge. And I think in metabolic health, the hard thing is limiting it. Talk to 45 minutes. You've cut me off before because it's like you have so much information. There's so many studies you want to get. You can't get it. You can't do it. So
You just can't
you have
do
to
it.
just
Yeah.
pare it all down and make it, so that you're not
Yeah,
speaking a
come and
mile a
speak to me
minute.
at dinner and we can talk more,
Yeah, exactly.
Phil Avadia is he's spoken at once or twice before. He's speaking again, and I mean Phil is like you. I mean he was in Florida. He was I think at our first Boca event.
Yeah,
It was the
I met him
beginning of
there actually.
2020,
Yeah,
and
yeah, it was.
yeah, he was just we were excited to see that there was another cardiothoracic surgeon in the audience.
Yeah, he was a
And
CT surgeon. I saw this big pile of steaks on his plate. And I was kidding him. I didn't know who he was. And I go, hey, he was just there as a guest, just visiting, like to learn. And I'm like, your cardiologist must love you, huh? And he says, yeah, they don't like me very much, but I'm a CT surgeon. I was like, what? Seriously? Yeah. I was like, oh my
yeah,
gosh. I go, why do you eat so much red meat? He goes, because I've never done a bypass surgery on someone with a normal insulin level. Right. And he goes, I've done tons of them on people with normal LDL cholesterol. And you're like, oh, okay. Like, then
yeah,
you start
no,
realizing the effects of metabolic health on coronary disease.
yeah, but I mean he's now really famous, basically, for lack of a better term for it at this point. Like he's wrote this book about stay off my operating table, and that's done incredibly well. He's got his own podcast, and in fact, I got an interview with him about the book in a couple of days' time. But
Really good.
it's been it's like you, like Pam and I are so proud of you and what you've been able to do since you saw the light. And we kind of claim a little bit of credit for that we put on that event where you
I
came.
actually made the book. I actually made the book because I go, hey, Doug, like, what are you guys doing? Like, do you have doctors in San Diego? Like, I live here. And you're like, we don't have any doctors at that point. I mean, that's what was so crazy to me. It's like, if it helps all these people, how's no one in this area doing it? How's no one focusing on metabolic health? Now it's going to be everyone's. I mean, so many people now, and it's funny. I don't know if I told you this, but I changed my practice name from Low Carb MD to like Arizona Metabolic Health. And my office manager got so upset. She goes, Brian, you're going to lose tons of people. No one's going to look for metabolic health. Then all of a sudden it's all over the news and everything. And all of our searches, 90% of our searches are metabolic health, not even my name. It's under metabolic health. They're looking for someone who understands it. So it's really exciting for the future of what we're doing. And what you started at the grassroots level, right?
And that's what we're hoping with the book, if we can get it to rank, then because those are the searches, metabolic health. And if people put that in the search, this book, if it's ranked well, will come up sort of above the fold, as they say it, where it's like, in the top few.
And it's called The Road to Metabolic Health.
To Metabolic Health, correct.
So anyone listening, we never said the name of it. I was waiting for Doug to say it, but he did, so I have to say it. So The Road to Metabolic Health, it tells Doug's story from childhood all the way up, all the lessons he learned and how he puts all this into effect, and it starts with making your bed, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But I sent you the proof of the cover, I think.
It's amazing. It's really cool.
So that I don't know, like divine providence, I don't know, but it was like they said to me, like, what do you want the help design the cover, right? But like give you some ideas. And so I'm trying to think of what I want. And we've decided on the title, The Road to Metabolic Health. So I was thinking of something that was showing a road to some destination that that was meaningful. And I had so many, I spent, I don't know, days literally like going through Shutterstock and the different um, image places to try and find something. And I was trying to find something that was, I had in my head like this rocky, a rough road, because it was not easy. And it's not easy for most people, right? And you fall off along the way and get back on again. So I was looking for something with a rough road, but where the destination was hopeful. And I came across this, suddenly this image just popped up, and it was like this dirt rough road with this gnarly tree, and the thing is, it was actually an African scene, and I think it's a marula tree, and then in the distance is this sunshine and this indication that there's good health and hope out there if you stick with it, you know.
Yeah,
But
I think that's such an important, like when I saw that cover, I was like, oh my gosh, because you're right. Like people think, okay, I'm gonna change my lifestyle. I'm just gonna be a flat road. There's never gonna be any hills, and I'm just gonna, but you have to realize that those hills are what's gonna make you stronger and better, right? Then you get the
right,
plateaus, you're like, oh, I'm on a plateau. This is great. Then you go, oh, what's that in the distance? Oh, there comes another hill. How long is this gonna be? And so that's what happens. A lot of people hit that first hill and they go, okay, that's it. I'm done. I'm not gonna do this. It's too hard. But you don't realize that once you get over that, I guess plateaus, we don't like to say plateaus here because when people are losing weight, they don't like plateaus. But
yeah, no,
when you're riding your bike, you
that's
love
a
it.
bad term. No.
Yeah, you love it on a bike though. A plateau on a bike, you're like, oh, this is great. But part of it, that's your body's readjusting and trying to figure out like what are you doing and how do I adjust to this stuff. So yeah, all these things are so important. I love, just how you went through all these things in your book and the risks you take, the benefits, and then seeing like, wow, we're helping people like that. Ultimately that's what it comes down to. And over time, people catch on and hopefully, in the future your conferences are packed and you can't can't get more people. You have to turn people away.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, outside of that, we've got Dr. Eric Westman and Tro that are our other speakers, and Laura Buchanan, who's on our board with the SMHP, that's another long story about
Yeah,
how
she's great, really
she
smart,
and her
really
husband
amazing.
Matt are just amazing.
Yeah,
So
great people.
Tro is actually sharing the stage with her, and so the two of them are going to do a talk together, and Eric will be there as well. He's been there since the beginning. He was at our first event, and he's been at tons. He's missed a couple, but he's been the speaker at most of our events. And really one of the guys that was in the trenches in the beginning when he was being treated as a heretic, basically, him and Steve Finney.
Yeah.
Those kinds of people that were Mike Eads, those folks that were talking about this 30 years ago and getting crucified for it.
And you think about how it all works out because Professor Noakes, who's one of the big leaders, he wrote the whole book on carb loading. You talk about this in the book too. And then he sees these guys write the book on the new Atkins. He goes, these guys are sellouts. And he had gained weight and had pre-diabetes or diabetes maybe.
Yeah, diabetes,
full on diabetes. He's like, how can I be running so many miles in the beginning? And this is how we all got so frustrated. And he said, I'm going to do this for a month and I'm going to say these guys are charlatans. And then it worked for me. He lost weight and diabetes got better. It's like, oh my gosh, they're right. And then he had to go back and change everything he did. And so it's amazing how these guys influence him. And then he has such a massive influence. Like these podcasts don't happen without Professor Noakes standing up to the system. Right. And then your forward was by Gary Fetke, who's another hero that went through the fires to get.
Yeah, at a very similar time to Tim. And as I said, in that, that Isaac Newton quote that if I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants. And Gary and Tim are two of those giants that we get to stand on their shoulders, So it was an honor for me that Gary agreed to do the forward. He's become such a good friend. It's amazing.
Yeah, they're amazing. There's just amazing people. Anyone go back, listen on both podcasts. We've interviewed them all. They're just amazing. And it's just amazing when you look back to see all these names and all these people who've had such a huge, massive influence, and you giving them the platform to be able to reach more people and to get out and talk and reach new audiences. And so hopefully I'm waiting for Low Carb Arizona, Metabolic Health Arizona to come, but I'll be patient. Phoenix is really nice and it's a good hub.
Yeah, if we do that, it might be, and it would have to be any like an East Coast one, I mean, or West Coast one, and since we would, instead of doing San Diego,
Well, it just
we do.
depends where I am that week. We'll see.
Well, yeah.
I'm just
So
kidding. I'm kidding. But
no,
yeah,
but
no, it's just amazing. It's amazing what you and Pam have done. And Pam's been, and I want to give Pam a shout out too. I mean, being your partner all these years and like having these crazy, she's probably looking at going, seriously, Doug, you want to do what? Like seriously, like
no,
leveraging everything. But
uh,
she's amazing.
she's been, and that's why I mentioned that thing on that first night after the first day of our first event, and I was packing everything up, and everybody had gone out into the foyer where the Dry Farm Wines was there, and I think we even had Bulletproof Coffee there that time. And I walked out the doors into this place, and it was just humming. There was so much excitement and so much going on. And after everything that we'd been through to get to that day that that event even happened, that was a proud moment.
Yeah, and you see the
Um,
lives change. You hear people tell stories, and they're like, whenever we go, like I'm busy, and then when I go to one of those conferences, I'm like recharged and fired up because you realize the impact. Someone heard one episode of the podcast, and you know, it's
yeah.
in San Diego this year. Someone came up to me and goes, "Yeah, I was going to commit suicide, but low carb MD saved my life." I'm like, "What?" Yeah, I heard an
Mm,
interview you did with someone with bipolar, and I started changing my diet, and everything got better. I was like, "Oh my goodness, that's pretty crazy." So there's so many stories like that. And you go, "Wow, we're actually not just talking to the sky." Into the wind. There's people who really, and those are the stories, and that's what low carb MD we got away from a bit is testimonies of people who are doing amazing things, and
mm,
because they're the ones who give hope. I mean, the science is great. We have to know the science, but really understanding, like, wow, look at that person's life. They couldn't get out of bed. They were, 500 pounds a couple of years ago. Now they're working out every day, and they're married now, and all those kind of things. Dave Dana is one
yeah.
that comes to mind. You go, man, I mean, what he's accomplished. I mean, what people have just. But I think it's like he's talking about, the road to metabolic health. You go, it's a road and it's a journey, and it's just really it's one step at a time. Even if you have to slow down and stop a little bit, just take a breath and get going back on that hill and conquer that hill, because so many of us just give up in the hard times.
Yeah. Because we're talking about Pam. When I was first approached about doing this book by the CEO of this publishing house, um, Pam was very skeptical and very dubious, and like I am normally the more gullible of the two of us, and I always want to see the good in people, and but I did do a lot of uh, due diligence, and I really did do a lot of research on this organization before I gave them my money. But even then, after I showed Pam everything that I had done, um, she was still not happy. Um, but then one of the things that they claim is that they could get your book to be launched within 90 days. And they've got this whole production process. And that's why it's not cheap, because they've got this massive team that actually are behind you trying to get this book out.
It's insane.
And
90
so,
days. I know people, it takes them years.
yeah,
When you said that, I'm like, wait, that's why we kind of rushed this interview. I'm like, it's done already. I was thinking like, oh, June,
yeah, no.
July,
So the
maybe.
90 days, I was busy producing, putting on that one day event that we added into our lineup this year, which was just as much effort as a 4-day event. Um, and they were harassing me and saying, like, you want to get this out by your event in January. And I said to them, I just can't. I can't even have a 1-hour meeting with you. That's how busy I am trying to get Brainerd Lakes on going. But the day I got back from Brainerd, I contacted them and said, okay, let's go. And they worked out that it was basically 90 days, was the 22nd of January, a couple of days before the event. And so we started, I remember saying to Pam, like, if we don't make it, we don't make it, right? And then we'll launch a bit later, and we can officially kind of launch it in San Diego in August. I promise you, I won't kill myself.
Doing this. And you said in the forward, like, I almost killed her doing it too, but we did it.
So not only did I kill myself, but I almost killed her too.
Well, it's well worth the efforts. It's a
Yeah.
great read. Anyone out there, grab it, take a listen. And because supporting Doug, and he supported all of us and said, let's bring knowledge to people. So if you benefited from that stuff, just really, and you can even,
so the link I'm going to give you that you can put in the notes here, Brian, is a link to, so this is going to come out next, a couple of weeks before the event. And so the way that they do this in order to try and help you to rank with this book, which is what I need in order to achieve my goals of reaching people outside of our own community. They do this thing where they withhold it basically until a particular day, a launch day, and they have a like a virtual launch party, like a webinar, and everybody hops on. I get like about a minute to just say thanks and for being here, and this is what the book's about. And then they basically it goes live at that point, and they show people how to go and get the book. The Kindle version is quite significantly discounted for the people on this podcast. And then they also teach them how to write a review, because if it's obvious that the review is from friends and family are not allowed to they can review it if they want, but it doesn't show up, the Amazon algorithm won't do it. So, if you write a review and say, hey, I've known Doug all my life and I just love this guy and he's so amazing and this book's great,
it doesn't show up.
It won't show up.
And if it's really short, it has
talk
less.
About how good the book is, but don't talk about how well you know me or whatever, because then it just won't even appear on the things. So that's what the webinar is about. It's probably 15 minutes, like pretty short and sweet. But then there's the surge of sales that come through, and I think that has something to do with how that's going to improve your rankings, so you appear at sort of top of the search lists. And
because it gets you up there. Like, so many people buy it at a low price, so people take advantage because you're gonna like the book. So
that's
they'll do it at a low cost. And
just I know there's a lot of people that listen to your podcast that support us too, and it's really just asking for this. If you want to help us to reach out beyond the bubble, then this is the way that you can do it: is register for this thing and take 15 minutes to hop on and engage with us, and that'll help us a lot.
Great. Yeah. So that's important. Again, the road to metabolic health, Doug Reynolds, Low Carb USA, SMHP. He does everything. So Doug, if people want to just track you down, because some people don't look at the show notes, but if they want to just track you down, how's the best way to find you?
Well, it's Dougie Reynolds, I think, on X, and Facebook is just Doug Reynolds. But really what you need to do is go and look up Low Carb USA and the SMHP. And you literally search Low Carb USA on pretty much every platform. One word, Low Carb USA or the SMHP. And you'll find those two organizations.
And then also in the book, you just scan the QR code and it'll take you to all the important documentation, all the
correct. So that'll take you to a page we're building on the SMHP site that will have a list of resources on Low Carb USA as well as the SMHP, but all the useful stuff that people can, link to the guidelines, and the link to be able to find a practitioner, and the link to learn about how you can become accredited if you want to do that, and and the link to all the resources that you just want to learn about, about this lifestyle and this diet and how that it can help you or your patients.
Yeah, and it could go by disease process. You have Parkinson's, you have a tumor, whatever, and you could look at the information just on your whatever you're interested with your family members.
Yeah,
That
so there's
yeah.
the searches are really good. So
And Doug, I've got to ask you before we close, man, what's life's best medicine? Since I'm running it on both, life's best medicine. This is the important stuff. So, someone like you who's been through so much in life, you've accomplished, you've been through major car accident with head trauma and broken clavicle and back stuff. What's life's best medicine now that you're getting a little bit? It may be a different answer than last time I had you on, but what's life's best medicine for you now?
the more, and I think this has become apparent to me in writing this book, um, is what kept me going. Like when people are saying, like, what the hell were you thinking when you lost all of this money on the first event and you still agreed to do another one and sign up for one in Florida as well? I think it's when you see how many people you can help. And I think that my life's best medicine right now is helping people. If you can find a way to make someone's life better, and there's so many ways that you can do that, um, that is food for the soul. It really is. And I think that's why people respond so much to communities and stuff, which is what we focus on trying to build, within these organizations. People feel like they want to belong, and and so many people want to also help people. It's like I was driven to try and help other people understand what I didn't know before I learned about this stuff. And when you talk about all these, how many people come to you and say, "Oh, thank you so much. You saved my life. You saved my wife's life, or my husband's life, or my kid's life," or um, that's priceless, man.
Yeah, I
And
mean, to know we're making an impact. And, I mean, and I want to thank you again because your conferences really gave me the education to be able to have this confidence of, coming across people like Ben Bickman and, obviously Jason
Mhm.
Fung and a lot of people who really understand metabolic health and how you're the other really important thing that people need to know is that a lot like for a lot of your conferences you'll have researchers who are experts in metabolic health, but they're not treating patients. So if we don't
Mm-mm.
get that information as doctors, like I remember when I saw Ben Bickman stuff, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. This is exactly what I'm seeing clinically, but I had no idea. But here's the science. Now I understand. So
Right.
these kind of things, it's so exciting, and that's why we get passionate about what we do. And when you see those lives change and people doing better, so if you're listening and life's hard right now, or you're having conflict and struggles, and first of all, be kind to yourself, be kind to others. That's what I always say on low carb. I mean, life's best medicine. And look around. If you're miserable, make a change. Don't keep doing the same thing and think you're going to have a different outcome. You gotta, if you're eating Pop Tarts every morning, maybe you change that. If you're 300 pounds and your sugars are high
Mhm.
and you feel miserable and you're in a bad mood all the time, it's don't give up on life. Like Doug's saying, that road to metabolic health, enjoy the road too. That's an important part of this, is enjoying the journey, saying this is a hard part of the journey, but it's going to get better. I'll get used to it. My life will change. But we have to have a little bit of obviously not injuring ourselves, but having a little bit of discomfort, pushing ourselves more. And that's what I'm doing this year more, like getting my workouts harder and pushing it a little bit, because we can get complacent. This is what my book will be about: being complacent. You get to a point, you go, oh, I'm doing fine. Then you go, oh, I had too many glasses of wine last month or whatever. So don't give up on yourself. Don't give up on your family members. Get this information. Get Doug's book for them. I mean, get the book, hand it to him, let him read about his journey and his story, because nothing's more powerful than a testimony of going through, being at a point where you have no memory because you have major head trauma, now running all these things. And I could even distract you this time, Doug, with you, right?
Yeah,
I can't distract you.
I literally didn't go blank once. It's impressive.
Yeah, because that's your story and that's part
Mm.
of it. And just knowing you and what your journey has been is pretty amazing. And that when you have success, you want to help other people. And I think that's what it's about. When people have success, I go, you can get there. Let me help you. I was struggling with that same thing. And that's why I love having our group meetings that we do in our practice. And also, when we get together as a body, there's something about talking to people and sitting down and hearing their story, and it's amazing what
Mm.
people are accomplishing. So don't give up is what I'm saying. Anyone listening, and grab the road to metabolic health and
There is
hear
hope.
Doug's journey and get inspired by that.
Yeah. Thanks, Brian. I appreciate it.
Cheers. Thanks for joining me, man.
It was only a pleasure. Thank you so much.
All right. Take care. Thank you for listening to this episode. We greatly appreciate your support. We would greatly appreciate a positive thumbs up on all of the platforms like iTunes and Spotify or wherever you're listening. And we just thank you for our Patreon supporters. We greatly appreciate your help in getting this message out. We think there's a lot of important information, and hopefully this helps you. Have a great day, and thank you for listening, and thank you for your support.